Yeah, so we're doing a topic today, and our topic today, which we'll talk about in a second, but why
Yeah, and I think
you'd be
we have.
surprised about.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised. We're going to talk about .NET, but I think what we need to do is start telling it. These need to be public service announcements, a PSA. We need to let you
Oh,
guys
maybe we
know.
should brand these as PSAs. Maybe that's a thing.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll make a pre-record PSA style video. You know what I mean? Like one of
right.
those
Yeah,
old school PSA videos. Oh,
yeah.
that's a good idea. Maybe we'll do that.
Get, you know,
I'm gonna make a note of
like the
that. I
Smokey the
like that
Bear
idea.
one. People cause forest fires, this kind of stuff. Yeah,
Exactly. That's exactly the way I look at it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty good. I like that. So yeah, so we're gonna give you our take on why we think .NET is going to win, or
I
just
think you'll
why
be
it's going to win.
compelled.
Period.
Yeah, and why it's winning and why it's going to win. So we'll talk about that. But there's more important things right now. There is a big change going on in the tech industry.
Oh man.
Monumental change going on.
It's big news. Big news. Facebook's going to rebrand. So, and a lot of you guys are probably like, I don't care. I don't use Facebook anyway. But as a developer, you should probably care too. They have a pretty big thing going on with React at the moment, right?
He wants to be known for building the metaverse,
I think this is
not
funny.
to be confused with the Marvel multiverse. I mean, I
think this Verge image they put together is just great. I think it's pretty awesome. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. So, chat, throw it in chat what you think the new name's going to be. They haven't announced it yet.
Yeah.
So I'm interested.
If you think you have a new name that's going to move the needle with us, put it in chat and we'll put it up here. You can always super chat your name choice.
You can do that
keep
too.
It clean though. Keep it clean.
PG names only, please. Just PG names only. Because there's some that I saw online that were like, yeah, exactly. There was some I saw online. I was like, yeah, we can't say that one. So what's your picks? What do you think they're going with?
So I think mine is, if you follow me on Twitter, I've already put my pick out there. But I think if he was asking me today, I have the perfect name for Facebook.
Go for it.
Just go ahead and lean into it and call it Spectre, and he can just get the white cat and he shows up stroking it. You have to get the ring, an FB ring, that you just have to wear around.
He's going full James Bond. I like it.
That's it.
I mean that. Yeah, that could totally work.
I think it works. It's just call him Spectre.
So one of the great suggestions that I saw was MySpace. Like just take a step back, go retro. Like you destroyed your competition, so why not just rename yourself as your competition?
Yeah,
it's a Facebook product by MySpace. That'd be pretty. Funny.
And I think they could also go full on Mr. Robot and just Evil Corp. Just put a big E on it. And just lean into it. Just go ahead and lean into it. You know?
Clearly they're like, yeah, we get it. We know you're talking about us. It's fine.
Yeah, that's it. We own it.
Exactly, we get it. So here we go. What's Miguel says beta book? Okay.
Beta book. Okay.
Beta book. Here's a controversial take. NSA version 2.0. I don't think you have to necessarily worry about Facebook being that, Ridgeway. I think you have to worry about the internet being that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of crazy.
We could lean into the DC multiverse. We could call it Zuckerverse. I mean, he wants to be known for the metaverse.
Yeah, I don't think
call it Zuckerverse.
I think, in all honesty, I don't think he'll put his name in it. I think that he will totally go the way of Alphabet, like because it was like if you could have made a fortune had you bet on the fact that Google was going to rebrand their overall thing as Alphabet. You would have never ever guessed that. It's so obscure.
Right.
So my genuine guess is it's something like Alphabet. It's a singular word that is going to be a product. It's going to be something like Helix or something space related, and it's going to be a single word, and it's going to be Facebook by whatever that thing is, by Helix, or by whatever it's going to be. It's going to be something like that, is my guess.
So, but what if Mark is calling to our friends at Microsoft? He says, "Man, I'm really struggling with this. Can you help me rename it?"
Firstly, why would he bother? Like he knows how bad Microsoft is at this, so that would never happen. But if it did, we joked about this earlier. It would be bad.
So I could see them, like Microsoft. Hey, this worked for us. Just call it Facebook Core. That's what you need to do right now. And then you can have Facebook by Facebook Core.
Yeah, I like it.
You know,
I like it. And the next
know,
version
and
is
then-
definitely Facebook 5.
Then 3 months later, you rename it again to Facebook 5, Facebook by Facebook 5. You know, it's like,
Yep, that's it.
that's what you could do.
That's it.
The Book of Faces.
Bookverse. I don't think it's going to be anything Facebook related, actually. I don't think it's even going to be part of the Facebook name. Like I said, I think it's going to be a singular word, totally unrelated, that nobody would have ever guessed. And just to throw it out there, I'm going to say the word helix. I don't know why it came to mind. Seems like a good word. That's what I'm picking.
They could go mandible or something like that, like the jawbone of a face, you know, like the mandible or something.
Maybe. Oh, this one's good. Mums it because only mums are on it now. The young have all left. This is actually partially true. I did see the exodus of like that, and it is like it's become an older generation thing for sure. But
we can tell where he'd see 17 Heroes from when he's talking about mums. You know, like
right. But again, don't forget a lot of people are putting their eggs in the Facebook developer basket too with React. So it's not just about Facebook as a thing, as a social media platform. They own Oculus, they own WhatsApp, they own Instagram. They're across all these things. So it's like they've got a lot of stuff going on. So and I think this is kind of a good guess, Patricia, but I also don't think it's this because they have a product already called Horizon. It's a beta application on the Oculus. Now I'm not sure they would use the Horizon name as their full name. Maybe they will. I don't know. But they've kind of leaned into that name already a little bit. So I don't know. Which, by the way, I did have beta access to Facebook Horizon on the Oculus.
Yeah.
Boring.
Yeah,
really
it's kind
boring.
of bad.
There was nobody in it, and it was just a bad experience. I mean, I played really early on, but it was like a social thing, and it was like I didn't get it. It was weird.
I guess they could call it Farmville or something like that. You know, where
they go retro. Just call it Angry Birds. We're gonna rename the company Angry Birds.
You know, their logo has all their little stuff in the farm. You know, they got the Instagram guys over here, and
I do wonder what the branding is going to be. I'm interested in that. I'm always interested in big corporate branding because it's super interesting. It's and then you've realized how they named it. It's kind of cool. So we'll see.
I think Google has great branding. Believe it or not, it's kind of funny. They do. They do
because they've managed to retain their branding through everything while also keeping it updated. It's you look at the very first one, you're like, wow, that's bad. But you look at what it is now, you're like, okay, it's close enough to what they started with, but it now looks it's modern and it's right, and it just feels right. Whereas the initial thing was just slap multicolors on it.
Well, so the thing about the multicolors is they, if you look at their logo closely, I read an article on this other way that Hydra, Spectra, Hydra. So that's kind of funny.
I like that. That's a good one.
Knock off one head, two shall remain. So.
This is true. This is Mark's ultimate dream, isn't it?
He wants to be the Red Skull.
Yeah.
But they said that the Google named their logo, and it was red RGB, red, green, blue.
Yeah.
And then the fourth color breaks that pattern. So Google's always breaking the pattern.
Interesting.
Anyway, supposedly that's what some person said. You know.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. I bet there is.
Otherwise,
the design.
Otherwise, like the design of the logo, when you look at it on its face value, you're like, wow, they just put every color in there, but that was by design. So.
Yep. So we will get to this here in a second. Don't worry, unknown.
Not a plant question either. Not totally a plant question.
Not a plant question, but we will get there. Trust me.
We're going to talk about that. The dangers of that, comparing to that.
So just as a kind of a segue into what we're going to talk about today, and .NET, we put out a quick video yesterday talking about this, which is VS Code. I'm like, wow, look, VS Code, that's cool. This is in my browser.
Running in the browser. Just running in the browser.
With these hover over IntelliSense too, look, which...
Yeah, look at that. Like if you go to CSS, go to my CSS file in there and then hover over a color. It's kind of cool. Just find a color.
There we go.
Look at that. Color picker built in. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Your IntelliSense right in CSS, HTML editor, indentation, color
auto save too. By the way, these files are
Auto-save.
local on my machine. These are not like in the
Yep.
cloud or anything silly. This is local on my machine.
Yep.
It's just a folder locally on my machine. It'll read and write
Right.
from and to that. Cool.
Obviously, you can't run or debug quite yet. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah. Run and
So
debug
that
obviously
can't
isn't
run.
available here, but yeah. I'm guessing that's not an oversight in the fact that they have the button here and the fact that they're telling you right now that it can't do it. That's not.
It's just a limitation of what they have right now, but I imagine that that's going to be coming.
Oh, I would certainly imagine it's coming. Certainly would.
There's
So
somebody in the
very
basement
cool.
working on it right now.
Exactly. If you haven't checked out that video, it's on our channel. We put it out last night. Go check that out. It's a quick video. I'll tell you all about this and some of the cool features that are in it.
Yeah, it's super quick, 5 minutes or less or something like that. So check it out. Give us a like, give us a sub.
Yep.
So, hey, sub to us if you want to. We're still trying to get that 100K, get Kevin a plaque campaign. So got a little ways to go yet, but talk to your friends.
Yep. Oh, that is the other thing too, actually, with this. With this thing. It will run on a mobile device, so it'll run on a phone. Like, here you go.
Exactly.
Look at this. It's running on a phone. I know you used to
VS Code right there on an iPhone.
On the website. And you can open up cloud storage on this too. If you have it hooked up through Git, it'll open up your Git repo. You can make adjustments and push it back out to Git from your phone.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Crazy good.
So if you're on the plane or, like I said before, saving the world, you're a secret agent or whatever, and that's all you got. You just shot the bad guy and all he had on him was an old iPad. You're like, I still need to change the code to save the world. You just pull his iPad and hook it up and change it. So it's kind of cool.
Definitely.
I like it.
Definitely.
I do like the fact of where they're going with that. What they're trying to do is make, also too, it does bring opportunities if you don't have like a super powerful computer.
Yeah.
You want to learn to code.
Yep.
This is one of those things that now, hey, we can run VS Code on anything. Can I code on my iPad? Yes.
Yeah. Well, one of their targets, two of their targets were iPads and Chromebooks, which historically you couldn't install VS Code on either of those devices.
Right.
So now you don't need to.
Right. So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yep. Very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, and actually, there you go. Eric says exactly the same thing right here. Last year's wanting a cheap new laptop. How cool it would be to run VS Code on a Chromebook. And then there you go. A year and a bunch of money later, the browser. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, and I will say right now, Eric, it's cool. You can edit code. It's a fantastic code editor, but it's not running or executing code yet. So like,
it's more of it's more like for something where you'd need to like fix something real quick, isn't it? You probably wouldn't do a full-fledged project in it. I just can't see that.
It would be kind of hard at this point, know. And then VS Code is lightweight, where to run almost anything. So that's, if you have a computer, that's still better. But it's kind of cool that it's in the browser.
And I guess, and yes or no, and I did see that there are ways that you can get VS Code to work on certain smaller end devices, but it's never ideal. It's not. They're not meant to run on certain of these things. So the fact that you can now and it's going to work and it's going to be kind of seamless is nice. Yeah. So yes. Okay, let's get to our topic then. We are talking about why .NET is going to win, and we were talking about this kind of this morning. We're like, let's make this the video topic.
Yeah. So like, one of the things that I want to talk to, there's a lot of things in here and to unpack here why they're going to win. Because Microsoft is a very big, multifaceted company. And then when I saw VS Code go in the browser yesterday, it's like, that's where this struck me. Like, these dudes are just going to win. Like, they're winning on multiple fronts, and they're winning at scale. And so when you start looking at, like, me as a developer, where should I focus my learning? What are the things that I need to learn? And what should I be trying to build? We need to start looking at Microsoft as they're going to push this out really, really hard. And they're the only company that can really do it at the level that they're doing it at. Like, if you think about it, they're simultaneously, one of the most valuable companies on the planet for as like cash and money and all these kind of things. Plus also all of the skill sets inside of the company, the brains, the manpower, the people. Then they have the platforms like Azure, and they have the tooling like Visual Studio Code, as we saw, or Visual Studio. And then they have the language support like C#, and then TypeScript. And then they have things like the .NET framework, and a lot of people are sleeping on the .NET framework because they've never used it, so they don't understand. So like one of the things that we see right away is when I show something like a very simple like MVC application, and they watch me type in update database, and it looks at my classes and generates a Postgres database, they actually don't think is that all there is to it? I mean, like, did you really do that? I mean, like, what else is in this demo? What other magic is behind the scenes?
Like, did you spend the last 3 hours setting that up so you could just do that? And you're like, no.
Right.
That's out of the box.
That's how it works. And so and the only people that can really do this at this level is someone like Microsoft. Like, in other words, like, they have enough people to work on everything at once simultaneously so that you are the most productive developer. And the other thing too is, like, I've got some friends that I know, and I'm not going to bring them up because, like, they're just posting their frustrations. And I don't think anyone's like quitting their React or their Node projects right now today because of this. But, things like the simple things like package management, package dependencies, those kind of things, the problems that some of you guys run into, you got to realize, like, in the .NET, because the .NET framework is so broad and deep, those kind of things aren't really an issue for us. For example, I think we ran a list down of the things that are just built in. Like, in other words, like, I start a framework project up inside, and I'm building a website, things that are built in, like identity, ASP.NET identity. That means I can have username and password authentication and authorization like that. It's built in. If I want to extend it, it's built to be extended so that I can extend it. In fact, at Foundry here, we start projects up every week, and you're in the cohort. And then we show them, okay, you want to add some other things to the user profile that's not out of the box. We show them how quickly and easy it is to extend that for your use case. But the primary thing about authentication and authorization is already done.
Right.
Like, you don't have to figure out, like, okay, so how do passwords really work? And, like, what should I be concerned with? How do I set the auth cookie? What do I need to be doing? All of that is done.
Yep. Here's the thing. It's actually a checkbox, isn't it? You create a new project. It's like a checkbox. You click the checkbox and it does it all for you. It is that simple. Yeah. It's not magic. And some people will say, well, yeah, you can do that in other platforms with all these third parties and things. You can. You can, but you've got to set it up.
You got to bring it in, you got to find the third party that you trust. There's a bunch of them. And then as a new developer, you're trying to figure out, like, which one of these should I use? What do I cobble together? And then when you come to .NET, and it's included, use identity. It's already, it's tested by Microsoft and, like, millions and millions upon millions of users. It's supported by a large corporation. So if there's any kind of, like, big request for features or some kind of bug that does appear in it, it gets fixed. And so, like, and then the dependencies and all of this stuff is worked out with the package manager. So, like, if you're doing something and you've got an older version of something that's produced by Microsoft, it's going to come back and say, you know what, you need to upgrade that. And you click the button and it installs the things that you need, and the dependencies are in there. So, like, that's kind of cool. I mean, like, it's amazing. And we just talked about identity. So you also have things like Entity Framework, and there is third parties of other ORMs out there like Dapper that you can bring in. But in general, you can use Entity Framework right out of the box, which means, hey, I can connect to my database. My database can talk to my models. My models can then turn around and generate SQL to generate my database. And so that's when you look at that, and I just type in add migration, it looks at the models, creates SQL, and then I update database. It goes to the database, uses the connection, and bam, it updates the database or changes the tables or whatever, built in. Practically flawless in most cases. Like, you don't have to worry about that, And so what you see about tweets are, like, I hate this framework because I'm fighting the framework. Well, here on the .NET side, and why they're going to win is, I'm not focused on the framework. I'm focused on building the fraud solution or building the thing that I'm trying to build. Like, that's where all my problems are. Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, what are my models? How do I relate this? What's my UI look like? How do I store my data? But, like, the fundamentals of the plumbing underneath all of that is ironed out. You know, and I had some other ones in there. What was the other ones that I mentioned?
You also said routing engine is there?
Yeah, so like routing. So when you see people like hooking this up and trying to say, okay, I need to like, I'm going to create this endpoint and I've got to type the route in and tell it what it is, you know, or I've got to build some plumbing on the back end to make sure that that route description is put in. It's not like that with, especially with Web API or MVC or something like that. The route engine's already there, which means that if I call it create contact, it's going to make sure that the listener on the other end knows that create contact goes to this view and this CS file, and you don't have to like do that. The only time that you mess with that is when you want to override it, which we do sometimes when we want to give something like create contact / an ID name like 34, and we want that to have a friendly name. You can override that. But again, that's built in. We're not writing the routing engine. We're implementing what's already there, and it just kind of works.
And that kind of goes for all of these things too. Like every single one of these, you can extend. You're not framed in this one thing. You can extend them, or you can just use something else too.
Yeah,
right? There's like
if you want to.
If you want to, you're not penned in so that you have to use this routing. You can do your own thing.
These things are rock solid, built out, already there in the framework that's coming in. So you're not even like pulling in the package or anything like that in most cases. You're just using it. Now, they have in the past, since .NET Core's coming out, they're trying to make this more modular so that you only bring in the things that you need. And that's just to make your download smaller so you're not like pulling everything in. But there's some core things inside of .NET that you're going to use on every web project, you know, or every Windows native project or every mobile project. And you just bring those in as you need them, but they're already thought out and built out. And .NET framework is like super wide and super deep, and just about all the use cases are built in for you. And not to mention the NuGet package manager seems to work very well in resolving potential issues that you come into at the compile time. So that's really, really cool. Like, you know, it's like makes it, you just focus on the problem, not the issues.
Yeah, that is something else you had mentioned as being a benefit, was bringing in third-party things when you do want to bring them in is also super easy.
Massive third-party libraries that you can, through NuGet, that you can discover and bring in, and like massive amounts of things like that. But like things like, and then, scaffolding. So like, you know, let's say I've got a model and I'm going to like create a web page for that model. I can literally right click and say, hey, scaffold the view for me. It makes the view the controller and hooks it all up to the database. So then really what I'm doing at that point is going to the view side and say, okay, I don't want everything in one column. I need this styled out. And then you're into Bootstrap and HTML, but you're not writing the scaffolding engine. You're not writing the parts to where it's like, okay, this element that's come from this JSON file needs to be hooked up to this property over here on the page. That's done for me. I declare a model at the top of my page, and it knows what the model is. It detects the type, and then it says, okay, I'm looking for a field named this, and bam, it's wired up, and it's really, really, really powerful. On top of that, they also have support for like, hey, you want to build, you want to use React, you want to use a different template engine, you don't want to use Razor as your template engine,
right?
You can do that.
I think that's,
so that's also modular too.
Exactly, that's a key thing. They give you like kind of this group of tools, and then it's modular in terms of if you don't like that group of tools, you can change them. Whereas other platforms don't give you the core to start off with. You have to cobble something together yourself. You have no choice on all of these things. Yeah. You have to, because it's usually
we're picking something and it's limited in scope of what this thing does, and we're like, okay, I'm going to use this thing. Yep. And then when you start building your website, you're like, oh yeah, I need security, I need an ORM, I need this other thing, I need this other thing, I need this other thing. And then as a new learner, you're like, dude, I got to figure all this out. I mean, like, and that's why it's confusing. And that's why when you get on some other framework ecosystems, it's like, it feels kind of like cobbled together.
Yep.
And you have your varying results for it. Whereas .NET framework projects, you can just say, okay, I know this is going to work, and I know that it's secure, and I know these performance is going to be there, and I'm not trying to figure out or researching the bug in the framework, where I'm just really just like focusing on what I'm trying to do.
So I'm going to put this up here real quick because we have a very opinionated opinion on this.
I understand what he's saying. And I understand why he thinks that.
Yeah.
But here's
we also
what
think
I
that's
want you
wrong.
to, I want you to think about something. So Python is primarily used for data science. I mean, it's primarily that's the target for it. So when you looked at like what is Python, you know, it's the most valuable language, whatever, and it's the most popular language, whatever. If you see these lists out there, you've got to ask yourself the question: what are people using that to do? And they're like, primarily, it's used for data science. Can you build other things with it? Yes, but that's not primarily what other people are doing it for. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means people aren't doing it as at the scale at which the other frameworks are. So if you had to say, I'm building a website today, where's Python ranking on that list? It's not number one. It could be down there 6 or 7. And when you're down in the 6 or 7 or 10, then it's like, okay, how much are we really using that for at scale? So you got to think about at scale, because what we're thinking about is I want to get you a job, which means that I don't want to find the one company that's doing Python web development, you know, or I could expose you to the thousands of companies that are doing ASP.NET. So that's the difference. Now, here's the scary version of when we say Python's going to win. All right. And I know this is going to be a hot take, Deep. So like, don't throw rocks at me. Don't throw rocks at me. All right. I want you to think about this. If there are millions upon millions of people out there writing code in C#, and you're sitting at company A and you're saying, you know what? The management came down, they want to implement something with machine learning, like in other words, or AI. So now we know that machine learning, AI, data science is something that we should probably be looking into. What are they going to do? Is they're saying, okay, boys, what we're going to do now is we're all going to learn Python over the weekend.
Yeah, you got 2 days. We're going to build this thing on Monday.
No. They are heading over to Azure and they're figuring out, can we run workloads up in Azure? And the answer is yes. And 2, what C# support do we have for machine learning type things? They're going to see ML.NET, and that's where they're going to go because they already know the language. They're not learning the language and data science. Now we're just learning the data science part of this. What does it mean for us to do machine learning type activities or AI type activities, and how does they do that? And the other thing that I can guarantee you that Microsoft's going to do, they're going to make data science way easier than it is today. And guess what language they're going to push that with? They're going to push that with C#. So that means that you can look at something like TensorFlow and you can replicate that on ML.NET. You can say, okay, that's what you want to do. Okay, we're going to do it in a library that our language is natively supported on, that we can tweak for performance, we can tweak for features and that kind of stuff. And it's going to take time. They're going to make sure those targets, the language itself, C# and the .NET framework, can augment what needs to happen for data science, and at the same time, make it more accessible to the guy building a website. The management comes down and says, you know what, we need to train a data set. And they're going to make that easier to do for a lot of the broad use cases for data science. Now, maybe, you know, in certain research environments or certain like hardcore things that are different, for a while, you may still see Python winning there because, you know, there's a lot of legacy applications coming through there. But as we go through over the next 5 to 6 years, I promise you, Azure and Microsoft's going to make this easier and easier to do. And they're going to increase things like ML.NET to make sure that it's on par with what you could do with some of the other Python tools out there. And that's why they're going to win, because, you know, they're the company that can put 150 people on this project, you know, and tie a PM to it and tie someone's like livelihood to like how well this gets adopted. You know, they can do those types of things to make sure that this is the best way to do it. That's why they're going to win, you know, and that's why you can see a lot of developers moving away from Python, because everyone's doing it in ML.NET or everyone's doing it in C#. And you're out there with your data science degree coming out of college and you're like, yeah, we love the fact that you learned data science and you did the Python stuff in college and you did all that kind of stuff. We love that. But over here, we do it like this. And so suddenly you find yourself learning a new language, a new framework to do the same thing that you were taught. And that's why ultimately they're going to win. Now, Microsoft doesn't have to win in every single use case, but they're trying.
Right, they're gonna have a go.
Yeah, they're gonna have a go at it. That's why you can look at things like TensorFlow JS and like there's gonna .NET's gonna be there running that, and they're gonna say ours is better and it's more performant and more people can understand it easier. And so that's why I think you're gonna look at it. So you need to start looking into it. That's for sure.
Unknown wants to know, which is a great segue, actually, because this is literally our next thing we're going to talk about. Opinion on JS, and I will put your comment up. Even though you spammed it, I will put it up because I do think it's a good segue. If we're talking about web, I think JS is uncontested king at the minute.
Well, I would say it's the king, but I wouldn't say it's uncontested. So it's
definitely not uncontested.
No. And so here's what I want you to think about. And I know that this is not a popular take. And the reason people aren't talking about this is because we are creatures of habit and what we know today. And we do not want to have like an adult discussion about what's going on in the industry. But here's what I want you to understand. If you're old enough like me, you can see when these shifts happen. You can go back and look at your career. And I want to tell you a story. In the early 90s, I was building on something called Power Builder. Power Builder was building Windows applications, and it was the thing to know how to do. Everybody was building on Power Builder. And suddenly in 1995, that went away. And literally, and it was almost overnight where suddenly everyone's building on VB6. And we're like, what the heck is this VB6 stuff? Who is this Microsoft? I mean, I thought they were just making Windows. What is this thing? And so suddenly everybody moves over to that. And then by 1997, I was no longer doing Power Builder. I was doing web. And Sybase, the company that owned Power Builder at the time, had lost on building things that ran in what's called a DCOM, or running something as an object on a server. They had lost that. And Microsoft had won that because they invested in the time in the tooling, the language, and everything else. And it wasn't perfect, but everyone went over to that. And by 2000, .NET comes out. And then I'm using another language called VB.NET, which was a bridge from VB6 into the new .NET framework. And 2 years after that, and since then, I've been using C# because they then in turn retooled that language. Why? Because Java was dominant, and the server-side language at that time was dominated by Java, and they wanted to make a language that gave Java people familiarity enough to where they felt like they can convert it. And so going from a Java type language to VB.NET was weird, because even you can take something as simple as a variable declaration or completely backwards, type first the variable name with other. It's not like that on VB. If then else, you actually type in the words and if, and instead of the bracket. So they created a C style language that ran as a general purpose language because they could convert Java developers. And what did they do? That's what they did. Everyone is using C# as the server side language today. So the other thing that you need to think about is not only are they making the language and making the tooling the best tooling in the industry, now they have fleets of people working on the compile time, the performance time, the load time of everything about .NET. And when you start looking at .NET 5 and .NET 6, and you see that, hey, if you take a REST service in .NET 4.5 and you put it in .NET 5 and it runs 50% faster with less memory, just by converting it, it's crazy. And then when you look at the Tech and Power benchmarks and you say, okay, if you take the same thing, Java is running 10 times slower than a .NET thing. So,
right.
So
I'll come to your question here in a second, Luke.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a second because we're going to talk about that. So when you look at JavaScript, you're saying it's the absolute king of this. What I'm telling you is things shift, and they shift quickly when they shift. There is a reason, and unknown, that they made WebAssembly. I want you to think about that for a second, because if you're older like me, you will realize that there was a thing in a browser called a plugin not so long ago, and the world was dominated by Flash sites. In fact, when I was running the consulting company, people would come to us and say, I want my site built in Flash.
It literally name check the
They
technology.
didn't know what Flash was. They didn't know why they wanted it. They just wanted because, that's where you get the whiz bang animations and all that kind of stuff. And that was the dominant thing for it. And then the browser vendors got together and said, you know what we don't like? We don't like plugins because of the security of it, the other kind of things. We just don't like that architecture at all. And bam, those things were gone. And guess what went with it? Things like Silverlight, things like Flash, overnight, no one's doing that anymore. You can't and if you're sitting there as a developer and you made your bones and made your money on Flash and you didn't convert over at that time to HTML5 and JavaScript,
you got left.
You were out of work.
Yeah.
You're out of time. You're out of time, out of work.
It was very fast when it died.
It was fast, very fast. And I promise you, there are Flash developers right now that's probably watching this, that when that shift happened, they quit being in IT.
Yeah.
They either went to project management or they ran a coffee shop. They did something else other than making websites because someone moved their cheese. In other words, no longer what do you mean? I don't use ActionScript. I did this for 15 years. Suddenly it's gone. I don't want to learn the next new thing. I don't want to. JavaScript sucks. I mean, you got to remember the absolute hate for JavaScript.
Oh yeah. You guys who haven't been around for a minute do not understand. The love you see for JavaScript now was the exact reverse, not 10 years ago.
Plugins are so superior to this scripted single-threaded language.
There were literal T-shirts with "I hate JavaScript" on them.
I hate JavaScript, And so, now, what we've seen, fast forward to 2021, and it was 3 years ago, they announced that they're going to have another compile target inside of the browser because we need compiled code running in the browser because enterprises want to do more complex things, and JavaScript just can't do it. It's never going to do it. And so, but building websites isn't that thing. So when you look at why they invented WebAssembly is the same reason why we had plugin technologies. They're still trying to run compiled code in a browser. It's just now WebAssembly for the browser vendors is considered the way to do it. And that's called WebAssembly. And Microsoft comes out with that with something called Blazor. And so what you have to do as a developer, especially if you're young in your career, you're 2 to 3 years into this, or 5 years into this, or hey, if you're a 10-year to 12-year-old vet, but you haven't lived through one of these screen shifts from Windows to web to mobile to, plugins to JavaScript, and you haven't went through that pain, that pain is coming because I promise you that they are going to move to WebAssembly. Now, when will that happen? Next week? It's not happening next week. 5 years from now? I don't know the exact date. But when it does happen and when that shift happens, it happens quick. And you either have to learn then or you could be on that front riding up and make the money when it's people can't find people the 10,000 projects that came out in that year that says, you know what, we got a Flash site, we need to rewrite that. Any of you guys know JavaScript? Who knows JavaScript? I do. And I'm sure they got paid above market rates because the timing was there, the need was there, the emergency was there, and you were the one sitting there with the skill that could convert that site over to an HTML5 JavaScript site. And that's what's going to happen with WebAssembly.
Here's the other thing about WebAssembly too. It is part of web standard. So that tells you that it definitely is coming. There's no question. It's going to be a thing. Whether it be Blazor or Rust or whatever implementation it is, it's coming. Yeah. So, and when it does come, it is literally designed to kill JavaScript.
That's what it's designed to do. And people are telling me no, it's not going to happen. Do you know how much stuff that would take? And do you know how much plugin sites there were? I mean, there was ActiveX, there was all these things.
Oh yeah.
The other thing that you need to think about. Let's say that I'm Microsoft and I'm building and I really like WebAssembly. And let's say that I'm selfish in the fact that I want everyone to use Blazor. There's a selfish motivation. Now there's a lot of things out there that make it a lot of good reasons from a technical standpoint why you should do it. But let's say that they're just purely I want to make cash with Blazor. They are sitting on these web standard committees. And when they run into something that they can say, you know what, WebAssembly needs to do X or this or that.
Yeah,
they can influence those decisions.
Yeah.
And then, believe it, they're talking to Google, and and that's why they're on the Chromium standard. Like they actually make commits to the Chromium. Like Edge is now in Chromium, but they're going to sit on these browser standards, and they're going to make it happen because there's things they want to do. They would like to have VS Code running in WebAssembly that could do everything that the current version of VS Code that runs on a desktop that could do, except now I can just deploy it to the browser, and I don't have to install it. I don't have to do all these other things, and I can run it on any type of device. And if you think that they are not trying to get VS Code or Visual Studio to run in Blazor or some kind of WebAssembly, I promise you. And I don't work for Microsoft. I'm not sitting there. But there's like 10 guys in the basement of Microsoft, and that's what they're tasked with doing.
I actually have a sneaky suspicion that the version that we saw of VS Code, like the web version that we saw yesterday, is kind of like a culmination of a lot of work over a lot of years in JavaScript. And they put it out, not as a finished product, because I don't think it is. I think they wanted to go the whole hog, but they couldn't do the whole thing. And now what they're going to do is, I think this is the first and last version we see in JavaScript, and I think the next version comes out and the people are working on this other thing, and it's going to be in WebAssembly. Yeah.
And they'll use Blazor to build it. That's what I think. And then when you look at, let's look down the things that are already, why people want WebAssembly. Because I promise you, the number one target for this is video editing. Premiere, Adobe Premiere wants to have a web-based Adobe Premiere that they can charge monthly for, that they can update in one place, and they just roll out the features. They don't have to get people to update it. They don't, and that's what they want to do.
And you don't need some crazy video editing machine to run it.
Exactly.
It's expensive. To do video editing is very expensive. You need very high-end machines. If you can get something that works great in the web, and it's becoming... Video is still continuing to rise as a marketing thing, as a consumer thing, as everything. It's very, very, very popular, and more people at home want to do it. You're going to be able to do it in the browser without having a $10,000 PC and $700 worth of software.
Right. And then when you look at their acquisitions, and you say, okay, they just bought Frame.io, and we're very familiar with Frame.io. Frame.io is the thing that we use to push up content that me and Kevin can then collaborate on. But what is it doing? It's making proxies, it's compiling it to the right version. And now you're going to have a Frame.io in Premiere to where when I push that up, now Kevin can just go grab that thing, and now it's in a timeline that is editing. Well, the next step is obviously we'll just put the editor in Frame.io. That way you can sit there and walk through the timeline, and then you can say, you want to cut here, you want to cut here. Okay, let's cut that. What's that look like? It does the compile and does the render, and it works inside the browser. And that, I promise you, that is one of the number one targets for WebAssembly, that if Adobe is not working on it, there's probably 10 other companies working on that project right now this morning. They're probably watching this video and how do you know what I'm working on? That, I know that's what they're doing. But there's some projects out there right now that already are in WebAssembly. And one of those being, if you publish your Unity game to the web, runs in WebAssembly.
Oh, that's cool.
AutoCAD, one of the biggest 3D renderers, their web app in WebAssembly. Google Earth in WebAssembly. TensorFlow.js has a WebAssembly backend.
That's funny.
So there's a lot of work going on, and people are saying, well, how come it hasn't happened already? It's been out for 3 whole years. It takes time. It takes time to build tooling. It takes time to do these things. Now, the number one web builder for right now for WebAssembly is Blazor. It's got the tooling and everything's in place for people to start building websites in Blazor, and they can just do it in C#. Is there still JavaScript interrupt? Yes. You have to go to the browser to do certain things. As we mentioned, one of the things, you still have to do those kind of things. Do you not think that the WebAssembly standard is going to continue to push most of these API things in there? Of course they are. That's what they're going to do. That's what needs to happen. So if you need the files API that you have in JavaScript to build your video code editor like VS Code, and it needs to be running in WebAssembly, you can do it. You'll be able to do it eventually. How long will that take? I don't know. I just want to see, you don't need to be 10 years from now or 5 years from now, the old guy that's holding on to JavaScript when everyone else has moved on to to WebAssembly type projects.
Right.
That's the Flash guy, with and he's the old guy rocking the goatee. It's down to here. And he's like, yeah, that JavaScript, that thing is just like, yeah, man, that'll never take off. It's never going to happen, and then you need to see these shifts coming, and you can make money when you're doing it. All I'm saying is, don't look at JavaScript as a religion, something that you have to have. Look at the opportunities that the shift can give you. And that's where you can like really cash in, where you can say, oh, I know how to do Blazor. I can convert that JS site, that monolith JS site over to that, yeah, pay me. And I think that's the Coder Foundry approach. And this is why we say this, not to give you a hot take, but to tell you like, hey, you know what? Pay attention to these shifts and cash in when these shifts happen. They do happen. And when they happen quick, and don't be left holding on to something that the rest of the industry has moved on from. Right. So anyway, open to questions. That's my hot take for the day. It doesn't mean JavaScript's going to die. So here's the other thing, what we always say. Okay, Bobby, what do I need to learn today, right now? If you're sitting out there and you're just saying, I need to learn right now?
This was Luke's super chat kind of thing too.
JavaScript.
Like this.
Yeah. Yes, Luke, you will. It's not a demonic grass. I just think it's changing. It's just going to change.
It's going to be, but like you're going to say now, it's going to be here for a minute.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen as quick as the other changes have. I don't think it could.
It could.
I
was watching at the time it was called Tech Ed, the Microsoft event.
Yeah.
And I remember the guy walking on stage. We're sitting there watching it like that, and I was running a consulting company, and we've got like 6 Silverlight projects in production that we're working on. Yeah. And the guy comes out and literally says Silverlight's dead. And I remember the internet just exploding like, what the heck did Microsoft just do? What do you mean it's dead? We're moving to HTML5. And then they backtrack for 3 or 4 days after that. It's not dead. I mean, like, we just, we don't know what that guy was saying. We fired him. He's crazy.
Yeah.
But it was dead because plugins as a technology were going out of the browser. Therefore, Silverlight wasn't going to run. So they had to do it. The only reason that I think people aren't saying JavaScript is dead now from the major vendors is they don't want to cause a mass panic. Like, in other words, like, what do you mean? Like, Blazor's not ready. We can't, there's a 10 million things. We can't do that, And so like, but I promise you that there's a lot of thought going on through what do we need to do to make the next iteration of the web? Because people want to deliver code via a mechanism that runs on every platform, whether that be a phone, a desktop, or whatever. And the browser is the way to do that. It just needs, in order to do some of the targets, we need to change, and those things do evolve. And so I think that's what WebAssembly is. And that's why it's going to change. But you can do local storage with cache servers and databases and there's other ways to do it. You don't have to use local storage necessarily either, Luke. It's cool. I use it. It's kind of cool, but there's probably other ways to do it.
Okay, let's get some questions here. Firstly, let me just
we have thousands of questions coming out. See
that? Let me talk about this real first. No, Alex, we didn't. So if you did get charged for it,
the super chat.
So if you did get charged for it,
the 1 million from N17 Hero too. His 1 million super chat didn't come through either. His $1 million super
yes,
chat.
I went back and double checked, Alex, and it didn't. It never hit our thing or anything. So no, if they did charge you for it, make sure that you let them know.
Yeah, but I went ahead and bought the Porsche on NC17 Hero told me, so like
on just the promise that it was on its way, right?
Yeah, I just think Super Chat must have been down that day.
I think it probably was. Yeah, I think it was. Let's see. So what we've got a bunch of questions here. Let's see. Hamid says, in terms of job prospects, how is the job market for .NET Junior developers? Because I see that most of the jobs nowadays focus on Node.js ecosystem. So
depends on where you're looking, man. I'm looking every single day, and I'm going to tell you right now, I had a call this morning, Ahmed, and I'm not going to tell you who the company is, but it is a Fortune 100 company. That said, he talking to the bootcamp to talk to our grads. The reason he's coming to us is because we teach backend with C#. The reason, and if I told you the name, they have commercials on television. Okay, this is a big company, and so I have a meeting with them tomorrow. And like that is because they don't want, and they say JS is great for front end. It's not great for back end. And when you look at it, Node.js is cool, but it's not everything. You've got to broaden your perspective on this and like look around, like web API, serverless functions. That's where this is going. You know, when you talk to people from American Airlines, what's their back end written in? C#. It's not in Node.js. Doesn't mean that Node.js isn't used. You know, you can go look at, like, we looked at a couple sites this morning, PayPal and like I think Netflix uses.
Well, Netflix was one, but Netflix was using it for their front end, which is kind of weird. It's like, which I'm guessing is how they display like the thing. Well, they also use Bootstrap, by the way, which was interesting.
But when you say most jobs focus on Node.js, I think is it's a straw man argument. By saying that, you think it's not. Now, different parts of the world could be different, and I'm here in the U.S., man. So like, but I'm telling you that when you go to the larger companies, you're looking at backends written in server-side processing languages that aren't JavaScript. It's definitely C# or Java or Rust or something like that runs a lot more performant than, say, a Node.js type application. We've had people pitch us, hey, we're rewriting our Node app right now. We're rewriting it into .NET. That's what we're doing, and that's why they come to the bootcamp. They're like, do you have .NET people that can rewrite this thing from Node to C#? I think you're seeing the performance is there, the amount of developers is there, and so it's really, really powerful.
I was telling you earlier, I saw a job from Lala. Thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
I saw a job posting on LinkedIn from a recruiter that was literally from a company switching from a Node to .NET. Yeah. They wanted somebody who knew both. They wanted somebody who knew Node and knew .NET because they were switching their infrastructure. It's like, okay, that's interesting. That's the first time I've actually seen an active one very specifically saying that. Yeah. Which is interesting.
So I think, Ahmed, to protect your career and to make sure that you're always employable and you're always on the cutting edge, you should know HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It's good to know how Node works, but I think you need to start looking into C# with Web API or those types of REST services, because I think that makes you a more well-rounded developer to where you can take on lots of jobs and take advantage of some of these bigger implementations and things like that. So it's not going to hurt you. Learning C# isn't going to be detrimental to your career, but just saying all I know is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, I'm going to focus on Node for the rest of my career. I'm here to tell you that's not going to happen. It's not going to be the dominant thing forever. You know, and I really believe that the C# and .NET world is dominant now. It's just that when you look at job posts, you don't see the hidden job market where recruiters out trying to find .NET people, or companies just calling me on the phone and like they want 4 people. Right. You know, it's like it's never going to hit the job post. You know,
I say that's a job that never ever gets posted, isn't it?
Yeah,
they just know
send them all the resumes directly to them, and like you know, and then that's what we're going to do. So I think you need to pay attention to the shifts in the marketplace, and then by the time you see the job boards change, it's too late at that point. Then you're into retraining. You need to like start learning now so you can act on these opportunities as they come up. I'm just trying to help you stay current, not necessarily cause a religious war between JS and .NET and Java. That's not my point. My point is so you can get a job. I'm not religious about any of these things. I mean, as you can tell, Power Better, VB6, VB.NET, C#. I mean, like I went right with those punches. I went from desktop to web. I'm rolling with the punches. You know, like if it changes, I look at that as an opportunity, not something to shake my fist at the sky at.
And it's funny because that also goes for what we teach too, by the way. Let me just put this out there too. People will sometimes accuse us of saying like, you guys push .NET because you teach .NET. No, hold on. We teach .NET because we push .NET. It's the other way around. Right. We know .NET works, so therefore we teach it, and we can teach whatever we like.
We teach whatever we want. I make my own.
If Bobby decided tomorrow we were doing Node, we'd be doing Node.
We would do it Node. It's that simple, you know, and it's that simple. And so we're not bound by anyone else other than what I think is the best thing in the marketplace. That's the only thing that is restricting us. There are a lot of boot camps out there that buy their curriculum and they teach the curriculum that they purchased. And
So
they don't really make their own curriculum. I promise you, the things that we make here is because that's what we think works from the consulting side, because that's what they're paying us to do. And then we're just training people to do that so that they can also benefit from the things that we learn. So it's not the only way. It's really big and it's really good. And when you look at the sheer size of Microsoft, I'm going to rephrase this. They're working on tooling, languages, server platforms, web platforms. They're looking at the cloud platforms. They're winning on all of those fronts. And if you think that they're not going to win in the WebAssembly space, it's just like you just got to.
Here's something too. The boss says the point is you guys like .NET. Well,
no, I
don't think it's got anything to do with liking it at all. We're totally indifferent as to that aspect of it.
It's cool. Like it. I like it. I do like it. It is cool.
But that's
what it
not
does
the reason.
Is really neat.
If you just
but
liked
I don't pick anything because I like it.
If you just liked it and it didn't get people jobs and you had no work in it, like we damn well wouldn't be here telling you about it, and we certainly wouldn't be teaching it.
No. That's like saying, well, I like Flash, and when it went away, I liked Silverlight when it came out. I thought it was cool. But the moment they killed that thing, I'm moving on, baby. We're not married. I mean, it's not for life. Right. Ride or die. I mean, that's not what we're about here,
Yep.
I'm jumping out of that car the moment that they say that it's not going to work, but it's right now when you look at and you try to future cast in the forward, you just need to get on that train a little bit, man. At least know how Blazor operates from a Hello World or the Counter app perspective, and put a simple database in it, and just make an address book app or a to-do list in it or something, so you can see how it works.
So yes, this is kind of what you're saying right now. So to convert, you need to know the outgoing language, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
You need to know how JavaScript works. I mean,
Yep.
So there is a current thing today, which is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and some kind of server-side language. I think still today, that's my best recommendation, which is JavaScript on the front end, C# on the back end is a great combo that's going to keep you employed for a long time. If they decide to say, someone says, hey, we're using Node and they're not doing C#, and C#, well, JavaScript too, and you can probably watch some tutorials and be up to speed on that pretty quickly and still be competitive in the marketplace, so I don't think that our advice here is going to hurt you in the long run. It's just going to do nothing but help you win more roles, make more money, be more competitive.
Yep. I just want to say hey to our friend Brian and Brian's mom. We haven't seen you here in a minute.
Yeah, we haven't seen Brian's mom in a while. So
thank you for coming and hanging out. We appreciate it as always.
Avoid the mosquitoes. He told us that mosquitoes were giant in Nepal. So.
Okay. Just a couple of other things. They're going to be portfolio reviews next week. Probably. We have enough to do some more, so we'll probably do another one of those.
Yeah.
You guys seem to like those, so we'll probably do
that. If you like them, we're not going to do them every week, but we can do that.
Yeah. Yep. What else we got? Oh, do we want to talk about anything happening on November 8th today?
Yeah, so what we want to tell you guys is that we have a huge announcement November 8th. The day Visual Studio 2022 is announced. We're going to announce some very big things here going on at Coder Foundry, but we're going to keep that under wraps. We just want to let you know that November 8th will be a Monday stream, and that we're going to be doing that and announcing some big things. So you might want to be around for that. So
we'll try and hype it up before then. We've got a couple weeks.
We'll hype it up a little bit, maybe drawing a hint along the way, but we got some huge announcements that we want to talk about on November 8th. And so we're still putting those together so that we can be ready to do that. But November 8th, mark your calendar, save the date.
Yep. It'll be awesome.
Huge. So.
Okay. Let's do one more here before we hit the road. Let me see here. Let me just do this real quick because this is great. I want to congratulate Cameron on getting his first junior dev job. That is awesome.
Nice,
Congratulations.
Cameron. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. That's great.
That's awesome.
Congratulations. And then let's see. Let's do Troy's question. Troy always throws you some good ones. When would you choose Razor Project over MVC Project?
It's, to me, Troy, and I may be in the minority on this, but I think that I would always choose the MVC project, always. I'm not the hugest fan of the Razor page, like the way they do it. I think MVC is more, to me, more relatable. I could be wrong on that. I think Razor pages is just something Microsoft wanted to change up the design pattern a little bit. I think they're really trying to build something that brings web forms people over, so it's more familiar to them. But I think MVC still to this day is like a well tried and true design pattern that works really well for web projects. And I would pick MVC over it every single time. But if someone said, hey, we're going to do Razor no matter what, which in one of our clients is true, guess what we're learning? We're learning Razor pages. So we're doing it both ways in the consulting side, because some clients want to do that. I don't know. A lot of people say, yeah, if it gets big, go to MVC. I don't know if I buy that. One's MVVM and one's MVC. It just depends on how it looks in the project structure. At the ultimate end of the day, they kind of do the same kind of thing. You know, you got post-back technologies and you're calling an endpoint and it returns something and you save it and show it. So not a big deal. But if it was me and you're asking me, I'm starting an MVC project. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do MVC.
Okay. When do the next 2 boot camps start? The virtual ones, I'm not sure on the dates off the top of my head, actually. Just
January, the first week in January.
January is the next one. Yeah, I don't know the one after that.
Yeah, that one doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
You're looking at, just look at January, and that's the one you need to target. That's the one of our most well-attended boot camps, is because you get out in the spring and it's a good time to be job hunting. So
it is. Plus, it's beginning of the year and people want to change up.
Apply now, because we already have people coming in for the January cohorts. That's our most attended one. The end of the one's the least attended, just because we get the whole Christmas break at the end of it, and I think people just don't want to be looking for a job December 24th. It's kind of hard.
It's tough going into that.
Especially in the U.S. But like January is a good time to break in and start doing it. So you got 2 months to get ready to do that, and, be here full time. So just think about it. You can go
to coderfoundry.com/apply, or you can go take the quiz, coderfoundry.com/quiz.
Yeah. Either way, you're going to be doing that. So if you want to be in our boot camp, learn.net virtually, which means that our instructors are with you 40 hours a week. We're unlike any other boot camp in the world. We're literally there all day long. I think that is the big difference, where we're a true apprenticeship, but there's a time commitment and from you to work on that model. So it's a little bit hard, and that's why we made the self-paced course. So if you want to do it on your own time, we get that. But man, if you want that 12 weeks of total immersion, we think Code Foundry is the way to go, and it starts in January. First week in January, and then it's 12 weeks after that. So
there you go. Just one last thing. Good luck with this. He has a screener interview for .NET, junior .NET, and a junior Salesforce apprenticeship. A couple of large companies, and taking the first offer I get. That's because you are a smart man, Sean.
That's it. Take it. They give you something. Take it. Go get paid. Continue to be working on your craft, and there'll be other jobs as you build out their career.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. Look. Hey, look. Ridge Raider, sorry.
Okay, cool.
They got a call today. So you probably spoke to Kelly this morning. That's cool.
Yeah, probably talked to Kelly this morning, so that's great. So that's what she does. Wants to see kind of what you're doing and what your aspirations are, and like your career choices and those kind of things, and how we can help you out with that. So that's kind of cool.
Okay, so we're going to wrap it up. We'll be back on Tuesday.
Yeah, special thanks to Lala for the super chat today.
Luke
that's kind of cool.
Luke got us as well.
And Luke gave us a super chat. Thank you. And appreciate all the recent members.
And to all the recent members. Yeah, Althea and Xander and Randy, Alantino, and Lala there as well. There is a new feature for members too. I saw on YouTube, and it does apparently work on our channel. You can, if you are a member, there's a way for you to once per month, you kind of get a free super chat of some kind. I don't know how it works from your perspective, but if you're a member, you get something, a highlighted chat, I think they call it, something like that.
Yeah.
It changes the way that it gives you basically a free super chat, I think. I don't know how it works from your guys' perspective, but if you are a member, check that out. You can you get that too. So that I did turn it on, so it is just on. I just don't know how it works. I haven't seen one yet. So
Yeah.
but I'm sure there'll be one there soon. Cool.
Let's put Deepak's last question there. He wants to know.
C# good for hacking.
I don't know. I'm not commenting on that one. Sorry, Deepak. So, I'm sure there's some languages that are built for hacking. So
yeah,
those are mentally built around the Kali Linux or something like that. That's, but in general, you do write code and scripting for hacking. So, I'm sure someone has built a PowerShell hacking thing, but whatever.
I'm sure.
So I don't know if it's not the best for hacking. I don't know if that's a target.
Probably
unless
not.
You're doing the white hat hacking. I'm sure that's what you're talking about.
Sure.
Security, pen testing, those kind of things.
Sure.
So anyway.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll be back on Tuesday.
All right. Good luck and keep coding. And thanks for attending. Give us a like or sub us up if you can. Get Kevin that plaque. See you on Tuesday.
We'll catch you guys later.